and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who would like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you. Hello, I'm Helen Leathers, and with me today is my co-host and business partner, Tom Dillon.
Good morning.
What's with the big pause?
I'm doing one of my big cat impressions.
How are you?
Oh, very well, thank you very much.
Have you woken up yet?
I was waiting for you to say hello, Tom. You just stopped.
Oh, it's me. Apologies.
You broke the script.
Hello, Tom. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm still conscious of the fact that a few episodes ago I felt I sounded very flat when I don't recall being flat, but sounded very flat when I played the podcast back and thought, oh, what was going on? So I'm still very conscious of being very up. So I'm very up, thank you.
Good.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, looking forward to our conversation.
You're always just very well. It's always me that's doing something different. Good. What we do today, Helen?
Well, we're going to revisit one of our popular topics, and that is boundaries.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. But this time we're going to go a bit deeper. We said we'd revisit this. This is our first opportunity to do so.
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit with Sarah Coop a few episodes back, didn't we? But yes, always worth a revisit, I think.
Yeah, they're such an interesting topic. They show up in almost every coaching conversation, whether it's about workload, relationships, leadership, self-care. And it's never just about saying no. I think it's about... It's also about understanding what we're saying yes to.
Yes. And the reverse.
And the reverse.
When we say yes, what are we saying no to?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. So I think... Yeah, the conversation we're going to have is going to bring in other theoretical concepts, isn't it? And we can tie it in with some of the approaches we take on our transformational coaching diploma, looking at neuroscience, transactional analysis and things like that. So go a little bit deeper, bring some of the theories into play. And obviously, our doctors in the medical world, boundaries often get blurred because of the culture, that sense of duty, responsibility, the constant giving.
Yep.
And when doctors come to coaching, then they're often, they see boundaries themselves as being selfish rather than that necessary thing to have in place to sustain compassion, to actually keep them going.
Yeah.
Because they're no use to anyone if they fall over, but they tend to see it as a selfish thing to do, to put boundaries in place.
Exactly. And I often describe boundaries as the edges of self, and they define where we end, where someone else begins. And when those edges are unclear, it can lead to exhaustion, it can lead to resentment, that loss of identity. And sometimes people realise through coaching that they've spent years operating as if other people's needs were more important than their own.
And that ties in, I did say we're going to introduce other theories, to transactional analysis and that idea of the parent-adult-child model. So a nurturing parent is definitely going to give of themselves. So when they see everyone else as less capable, so they show up and they start rescuing people, doing the work for them. I go, there, don't worry about it, I'll do it. So that rescuing parent. And also, the flip side of that in transactional analysis and that parent-adult-child model is the adapted child who follows the rules. So if they are asked by someone senior to them to do something, they do it because they don't want to be in trouble, or maybe do it because they don't want other people to see them not doing their job. So that adapted child is very conscientious and shows up and gets it done. Yeah. And obviously within coaching, what we're trying to get to is an adult to adult place. So thinking things through properly. Does this make sense for me and for my energy and for my sustainability? Is it good to be saying yes to this thing?
That's so true. And when we help coaches recognise those patterns, it can really often lead to those aha moments. They suddenly see that their automatic responses have always been to say yes or to rescue others, perhaps picking up extra shifts, and they haven't really thought about it. They've just said yes.
Yeah, I know you mentioned rescuing others, and I know that again, within transactional analysis, the drama triangle talks about the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim. And obviously people that struggle with the boundaries do step in as the rescuer, and they feel valuable when they help someone else. So they do that more than they should. And that's, again, something that we work with within coaching. And I use the drama triangle a lot with rescuers. I don't use it. I don't tend to use it with victims because they get a bit upset about you calling them a victim. Well, I wouldn't use it with a persecutor because they don't like to be labelled as persecuted. No. But actually, if you talk to someone about the drama triangle and the rescuer role, people get it and they own it and they go, oh yeah, I'm a bit of a rescuer. Yeah. And they like being a rescuer. So that's good to address.
I like that. Boundaries are really about choices. And as coaches, I think we're helping people to reconnect with that sense of agency and the power to choose what they do with their time and what they do with their energy, what they do with their attention. And I think sometimes it's useful to imagine boundaries as a boundary, as a circle around yourself, and to notice what you're inviting into that space. And perhaps who you invite into that space.
Yes, I'm just thinking about Gestalt, another one of our approaches on our transformational coaching development, and that maybe within the coaching room, getting people to actually create a space around them, maybe just by holding their arms out and swinging their arms around to create the circle around them, and very visually, who would you invite? This is your space. Who would you invite into that space, and what would that look like? And bringing that into the room is a very Gestalt way of working. I think really can help people to visualize those boundaries. Yeah.
And I think you can go even further than that and have different circles around you, those closest to you. And I've heard that described as like the hearth, who's at your hearth, and then who's in that extended space, and then who's further afield in that realm of your existence, but not as close.
Yeah. I guess the only problem with that, of having the hearth, quite often we don't have boundaries with the people closest to us.
That's true. Yes. Yeah.
So tricky, but I think, that sort of visualization, that kind of metaphor of actual physical space can be useful in helping people to create metaphorical boundaries around them. So I think just, again, a Gestalt way is to experiment, isn't it? And think about perhaps areas where we could say no. Maybe small experiments of how we could say no to people rather than saying yes, and what that would mean to us.
Yeah, or even experiments to just know what we want rather than not minding, perhaps. Being really clear on what we do want in certain situations, just to practice telling people what we want, even if it's moving tables in a restaurant or deciding that you want a different table to where someone's going to seat you. That kind of little experiment can really help you to remember you've got choice and agency in an area that's not really that important, so that you can practice those skills.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Nate in Ted Lasso asking for the window seat.
Window seat, yes.
It's very important to him. Yes.
But it helps us to understand that it's safe to ask for what you want. And I think a lot of people, and certainly some of the women that I've coached, don't know that it's safe. They don't know that it's safe to ask for what they want, and they don't know how to do that.
No, and it goes back to that adapted child thing in transactional analysis, doesn't it? That when someone says, oh, this table here, you don't go, well, no, actually, I'd quite like a different table.
Yeah.
It's just that adapted child of, oh,
okay, yeah, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
So those experiments, I think, not just helping us to realise that we're safe when we ask for things to be different, when we ask for what we want, but it starts to change those neural pathways. If we've always done what we've always done, those pathways are very embedded, the yes pathways, if you like. And when we start to shift them, we can start to form new neural pathways.
Yes,
in our behaviours.
So a bit of neuroscience, again, something we cover on our transformational coaching diploma. And obviously, if we are confidently and assertively setting a boundary, that's activating our prefrontal cortex. So it's not going to that place of the amygdala hijack. Although I think initially we're going to have to struggle through that feeling very tense when we say no to something, when we experiment with saying no. And this is why it's perhaps useful to start small with saying no to things that don't really matter.
Yeah.
But just to practice saying no, to prove to yourself that you can say no. Because the more that we can be in that space of saying no, the more it will become natural. We're not going to activate our limbic system. We're not going to go into fight or flight just because we're saying no. So I think it is something that you need to practice doing, but do it in small ways.
Yeah. And I think even saying, oh, can I have a different table? Actually, this isn't suitable. Yeah. For some people, that's going to have an adrenaline release. Yeah. You're going to feel
quite anxious about just saying that, just thinking about that.
Yeah. But I think also that's why self-care is really important. When we're exhausted, when we're stressed, the prefrontal cortex goes offline. We revert to automatic habits, often people-pleasing, perhaps avoidance. So part of boundary work is resourcing the self, sleep, rest, nutrition, and those supportive relationships.
Yeah, and I guess if you are feeling under-resourced and tired and stressed, then there's a lot of cognitive effort goes into saying no, isn't Like you might feel that you have to come up with an excuse or a reason why you're saying no, to explain yourself. And that takes cognitive effort. And we don't really we're all cognitive misers. We don't like having to expend. So sometimes we'll say yes to something that's going to take a lot more effort in the long run just to get out of having to think about it now. Yeah. Making that effort to give it some proper thought.
It's that short-term gain.
Yeah.
But then you've set precedents and you keep going and with the same lack of boundaries.
But actually, I think that need to explain ourselves, again, is a little bit misplaced. I don't think, on the whole, we do. We could just say no.
I remember the first time I said no. Well, it's probably not the first time I said no, but the first time I decided to enforce a boundary, I suppose, and I just said, I can't do that, thinking I'd then have to explain myself, and I didn't. Everyone just went, oh, okay, we'll rearrange it. I was absolutely flabbergasted. It's like the world didn't end, but a bit of my world kind of was shook because I thought, oh, yeah, that was easy. Why haven't I done that before?
Some good learning there then.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's maybe a reason why people don't set the boundaries is maybe that unwillingness to give it lots of thought and come up with a reason in the moment. I think that is, maybe a strategy is perhaps not making a decision in the moment if someone asks you to do something and just saying, okay, let me think about it.
Yeah, that's definitely a strategy I've used in the past. And I think creating that space, and which comes back to sort of a cognitive behavioural approach, creating a space between the incident and the reaction. Yeah. It's the same, isn't it? I don't want to say immediately yes. And equally, I don't want to say immediately no, because one of the dangers potentially of starting to set boundaries is we start saying no to everything. Maybe we wanted to do that thing. So creating that space. So if we are saying yes, we know what we're saying yes to, and we've made a conscious decision. But if we're saying no, we've also made that consciously. And I think that's essential.
Yeah, I think values come into this as well. And I think if we can make our decisions based on our values, that puts us in a much stronger place to uphold the boundaries.
Definitely.
So if we talk about people perhaps saying yes because they're compassionate people and they want to help others. But if compassion is really one of their values, connecting that with them being able to sustain their efforts at work, they're being able to stay in place at work, might need them to demonstrate some self-compassion and know that they're going to need rest. And is what we were saying earlier, isn't it, about that all of the good things that build their energy, they need to look after those too. So might have to say no in order to say yes to sustaining all of that lovely energy stuff.
Yes. And that idea that you can choose to do that.
Yeah, so choosing to rest.
I choose to
so
rest.
That I remain resourced.
Absolutely. I once said no to a television series.
Did you?
Yeah, because it didn't fit in with my values. Oh. Yeah.
Oh.
There we go. Just thought I'd throw
What was it?
Oh, we're not going to talk about that today.
Come on. Was it something saucy?
No. No, it wasn't.
Tell us what it is. You can't throw that out there, a TV series, and then not tell us what it was.
It was to do with haunted houses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Which, you think's nonsense. So
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I did turn down the opportunity to do that because it wasn't in line with my values.
Good. Well done.
There we go. So let's go back to the I choose to.
Yes.
So that structure, it's one of my favourites. I know it's one of yours as well. It moves the focus from restriction to intention. So we are intentionally making that statement, making that decision. It's empowering, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not punitive. You're not saying I can't. You're saying I'm choosing to because this matters to me.
And I think an interesting addition to that statement is even though.
Oh, even though.
Yeah. So I choose to, so that even though everyone's going to be a bit annoyed with me,
I
I know my reasons for doing it.
Yeah.
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 Good. So I think if we connect with that sort of personal why, we're connecting with our values, but maybe also a sense of purpose, then I think people are much better at protecting those boundaries if they've got a real reason for doing it. So if we think about doctors leaving, maybe a GP leaving a surgery so that I choose to leave work on time so that I could be the kind of parent I want to be.
Mm.
I mean, they're difficult boundaries to uphold, aren't they, when things are stressful at work? But because your children will love you nonetheless. But that's where it slides, isn't it? And that's where those boundaries can get a bit fudged, is if the stress of the workplace is pulling you in, and you think, well, everything will be okay at home, but maybe you're not being the parent you want to be.
Yeah.
So good to connect with that, I think.
And we know that setting boundaries doesn't always go smoothly. There can be pushback. People might not like the new rules, especially the people who've benefited from our previous lack of boundaries. Yeah. So I think part of the coaching work is helping our clients to prepare for those conversations and the discomfort that comes with that change. We're changing the dance.
Mm. We are. What dance are we doing now?
We're going to do a samba.
A samba.
Yeah.
A samba.
Samba.
No one likes the samba. It's a tricky dance. I don't know why anyone does it, to be honest. Anyway, well, no, yes, we are. We're changing the dance. We're changing the script. And I think sometimes when we change the script, if we've always been if we've always been a bit of a pushover and we've always said yes, the chances are people are going to recognize us for that and are going to come to us because we're the pushover. And they won't go to the people who have their boundaries in place. So they suddenly, if the script is changed, if the dance is changed, they're going to find that troubling, aren't they? They go, what's wrong with them today?
Yeah.
Why aren't they saying yes? They always say yes. So I think that can be really useful. So maybe within coaching, we can work on doing some practicing of those conversations of where you say no and get some pushback and, you have a response.
Exactly. And that assertiveness is often misunderstood by some people. When we start to be assertive about that, they might think we're being aggressive. I've certainly had that in the past where people have said, oh, what's wrong with Helen today? But actually, it's more about respect, isn't it? It's about respect for yourself. It's about respect for other people. And when we model that in the coaching relationship through time boundaries, through confidentiality, through clear contracting, we're teaching our coaches how boundaries can coexist with warmth and compassion. And we can have that lovely safe space because of the boundaries, not despite them.
Yeah, but I think there is a problem there with people gearing themselves up to say no, that they might, because they know they've got to be assertive, because that's a shift of pace for them. That's a shift of dynamics that they're not used to. Sometimes they can overdo it, and it can come across as maybe clipped, maybe aggressive, maybe somehow off because they're doing things in a different way. So I think that's why it's useful to practice, and maybe practice saying it with a smile on your face and saying it in a very calm way, a very zen way. No, I'm not able to do that today. But just making sure that you don't go to that place. And I've been coaching someone recently who has been told in the past that she can sometimes have a clipped way of being. And now she is being more assertive. She's getting sort of a little bit annoyed by stuff going on around her, but she is saying no to stuff that's being put upon her. But I think the same thing is happening, that she's starting to do it in a clipped way, and just in trying to be assertive is not delivering it in a way that's helpful for others to hear. So I think, again, practicing that in the coach room. And as coaches, we can feed back how it sounds, can't we? And I've certainly had people that, they've wanted to bring a conversation into the coaching room, have the conversation in the coaching room, and me looking in thinking, oh God, that's not going to go well. Just because of the way that they're saying it. But we can observe that, can't we? How do you think that's going to come across if you say that out loud?
And I think one of the things, as you know, that I like to do is in sort of embodiment work. How does that feel in your body? And I think we've done this before on a podcast, encouraging people to feel how it feels when you are being more aggressive, and feel how it feels when you are being more assertive. And there's a difference. And I think really feeling that in your body can be useful as well.
Yeah. So again, a very Gestalt way of being, to experiment with that. Okay, let's imagine you were doing this in a really aggressive way. How would you say that out loud? And then if we dial that back a bit.
Yeah. Just to feel the difference. Because I think also in the moment, if there is a confrontation, if there is a heated discussion around that change of script, the change of dance, it might be easy to step into an aggressive space. And if you've recognised it in a coaching session where you've practiced feeling how your body feels and moves, you hopefully will be more likely to recognise it and step back, dial it back a little bit. So I think it just gives you some more resources.
So I think the coaching relationship is actually quite a good live model to think about in terms of boundaries, because we do have boundaries around coaching, don't we? That's part of our contracting with people. It's part of our, when we have a chemistry session, we will tell them how the coaching is going to go. But sometimes we might have to reinforce those boundaries. Maybe someone isn't respecting our time. I mean, so if someone turns up late to one of my coaching sessions, we don't have the time on at the end.
No.
We finish on time.
We'll have to finish on time.
I always like to tell people, I start on time, I finish on time. So the same when I'm doing training. I never, if half the room aren't there, I'll start on time.
Yeah.
Well, they'll catch up. But.
And sometimes we even have to model boundaries when clients want more than the coaching agreement allows. And we've heard of that from some of our doctors who've said, I'm coaching, and someone's turned up with a medical query and they've had to say, no, this is a coaching space. Maybe they're looking for some therapy. Maybe they're looking for friendship even. Holding that boundary kindly helps them to experience what it feels like to have clear but caring limits, I think.
Yeah, and it could be them contacting outside of your coaching space.
Yeah.
I don't really talk to my coachees beyond the coaching room. So, but if someone started contacting me, and I did have it from a consultancy perspective once, I was paid a day rate to go in and do some consultancy for a firm. But one of the guys would keep ringing me and I'd be on the phone to him for an hour.
Oh.
I said, well, no one's agreed to pay me for this time that I'm spending talking to you. So we kind of had to have that conversation. But I think within a coaching space, obviously that's where supervision would come in. Mm-hmm. If you are struggling with someone who's pushing the boundaries and you're not quite sure how you reinstate them, just bring that to supervision, have a conversation with the supervisor.
Absolutely. And early on, I'd often feel the urge to send follow-up notes or extra resources, thinking I was being helpful.
Well, you were being helpful.
I was being helpful, and I still do that sometimes. But really, I think perhaps that's holding on to some responsibility, and that's supervision helps keep that awareness alive in you, doesn't it? What am I doing that's outside of the boundaries? And
I think that's useful for all coaches, particularly new coaches, to be quite clear about their boundaries. And I think it is when you first start working with people in a new context, it's difficult to know what boundaries you want for yourself. But I think the quicker you can start to establish those, know how you want to be in your business and set those. And if it's going slightly awry, say bring that to supervision. But it's all part of development, isn't it, for a coach?
Absolutely. And perhaps that's a good reminder for everyone listening. Boundary work starts with ourselves. You can't model what you don't practice.
No. or yes. No, which one do I want to say? I don't know. But I think it's also ongoing work. So I think different situations are going to arise where you're not expecting to have to apply boundaries, and suddenly you realize you do have to. And it might be difficult for you in that context to be assertive and apply boundaries, particularly perhaps a bit for people that you don't know particularly well. But it's a constant aspect of our lives that we need to pay attention to.
Definitely.
Yes, so if we think about boundaries as not being fixed walls, but sort of living edges, and they're constantly breathing and with us and moving with us, living with us.
I like that. That's a great image. Living edges. And sometimes we only notice our boundaries when they're crossed. Yeah,
because we get resentful, don't we? If someone, well, hang on, but we maybe never told them what our boundary is, but they cross it anyway.
Yes, sometimes that's a conversation to be had in the coaching space. Oh, I can't believe they crossed my boundaries that I never told them about. But that discomfort is really useful feedback about what value has been suppressed or stepped on here.
Good. So boundaries aren't just about behaviour, they're about awareness. They help us to understand who we are, what matters to us, how we want to show up in the world.
Yes. And that brings us to something that often surprises people. I often say this, the boundaries are an act of love. Love for ourselves and love for others, because they create clarity.
And you have a lovely story, don't you, about doing work. I think you may have told it before, but worth reiterating, about when you were doing work with foster carers. Yes.
I just remember standing trying to talk to, give some feedback to one of the foster carers who's young person I'd brought back from a family centre, and he was banging on the patio doors saying, can I go out? Can I go out? Can I go out? So she kept turning to him in the conversation. She's talking to me and then turning to him and saying, no, no, no. And she said to me, what you hear is no, and what he hears is I love you. And that always gives me goosebumps to this day, that thought that this small child needed to hear that and understand that something was being said as an act of love.
Wonderful. I think that's a good note to end on. So just before we go, 3 tips for applying boundaries.
Okay. Number 1, start small. Choose one situation where you can practice a boundary and reflect on how it feels. That would be my first tip.
Yeah, I know. So like I was saying, it's useful to start practicing something you've not done before in a small way. All guns blazing.
Yeah. Number 2, anchor your boundary in your values. So your I choose to, so that, even though statement.
Very good.
Number 3, practice radical self-care. This is definitely my favourite. Actually, it should be number 1, maybe. Turn it around the other way. Do this first. Boundaries are so much easier to hold when you're rested and resourced.
Yeah, and I think on the point of self-care, I think being kind to yourself around setting boundaries.
Yes.
And it's all learning. So if you set a boundary and then you allow that to slip, it's not the end. You just re-establish the boundary and start over.
Yeah, you've just fallen back into an old neural pathway. Yeah.
So I think that those building of the neural pathways take time. We'd have to keep practicing. So the more we can practice, the easier it's going to become.
Excellent.
Good. Wonderful stuff. Thank you, Helen. It's been a very rich conversation. I thought it was worth revisiting boundaries and just get a little bit deeper. So
it's been a while. And thanks to all our listeners for joining us. We hope the conversation helps you reflect on your own boundaries and where you might need a little love and attention.
Wonderful. And if you have enjoyed our conversation, do subscribe to our podcast. Go to your podcast provider of choice and give us a 5-star rating, and tell everyone you know, well, other doctors who are interested in coaching, about our podcast too.
Excellent.
Yes. Next time on the podcast, we will be looking at absence in coaching. Yeah, I thought you'd have that reaction. All will become clear on the next podcast, so we will look forward to talking to you again then. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.